never stop talking. Don't ever suppress your thoughts and language, and don't correct your language. Just say it. Say what you need to say, because your children are depending on it. The future of this country and the future for freedom on this planet is depending on it. So stop being scared and say what you need to say if you know that what you're saying is truth. If you know what you're saying is truth, say it. It's your duty to say it.
Welcome to another installment of Live Free. I'm your host, Gene Owens. My guest today is a rapper and a health freedom activist from New York. Here he is performing at a protest outside of Pfizer headquarters in New York City.
Raise the roof off this mother, middle fingers in the air, cause we fucking bitch, brother, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't putting on no mask. So don't you try to tell me, don't you even fucking ask.
Please welcome Kozi-19.
How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah, so you came on my radar in the last couple years, just through your activism and through your music. And I have to say that song that we heard in the intro, "I'm Unvaccinated," I think is one of the most defiant songs of the COVID era, in my opinion. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because hopefully this will expose your music to a wider audience, because that song is just like the most rebellious anthem, I think, out of the last few years.
Wow, I'm glad you feel that way, brother. Yeah, man. It's been rough. It's been rough. Going through this. When we went through the pandemic. The way they came down on us. Nobody would expect it to come down that hard. Like I thought, okay, like I knew this was coming. Because I've been following the medical freedom movement. I've been following, the pharmaceutical agenda. I've been following all of that for years. And I knew they were going to do something like this, but never in my wildest imagination did I think that they would go for this long and to be able to muzzle people. If you were to tell me, like, 10 years ago, like, that they would force muzzle people, like force them to wear masks to enter establishments and to travel and all of that, I would have laughed in your face. I would be like, there's no way in hell we wouldn't put up with this. But people put up with it. And not only did they put up with it, to this day, there's still people walking around with masks when there is no pandemic. There was never a pandemic, to be clear, but I'm just saying there's nothing to fear, yet they're still fully, like, literally a guy yesterday walks out of a Starbucks bathroom right before I used it, and he was masked up, and I was like, wow, you were alone in the bathroom with a mask. It's like I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
It's sad. I mean, some people's minds are just seem to be irreparably broken by the propaganda of the last few years. I see it here where I live. I live in this very small, woke college town of Athens, Georgia. And so, yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was at the grocery store. Almost half the people in there were still wearing masks in 2023. So, yeah, it can be a little disheartening. I mean, the whole thing really was, right, where you saw people trusted what they saw on screens over their own eyes. And the propaganda that was coming out of China, people falling dead in the streets, and these, health officials in like hazmat suits surveying this empty Chinese street with dead bodies lining it on the sidewalk, which we now know was complete propaganda. But the people never saw that here in the States, yet they believed that they were living through contagion. It's a testament to the power of propaganda and mass media, that you can literally make people believe anything, those that are susceptible and malleable, whose minds are malleable.
It was unbelievable how they got away with this. And yeah, it's just like the imagery and the constant repetition, right? And I think, obviously the mask thing is they wanted people to have the mask on, not only to induce fear, but like to have that image up to like make people think that there's constantly a pandemic going on, 3-4 years down the road, constantly everywhere you go. And it's just like the imagery of fear and death and sickness, and just to keep that up and constantly repeating. It was literally every 2 minutes you would hear on the news cycles, COVID-19, 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 like constant and constant. It was maddening. It like, you either wanted to like break your TV, or you were like fully with it. Like you were like, yes, 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 like we need to be safe, you know? So it was a time when I always like to say is like it's either you fear your government, like fight or flight was going on in both sides, right? No matter who you were, it was either you were afraid of what your government was going to do to you, or you were afraid of the actual, the thing that they were telling you, like the virus or whatever, they claimed it was. So fight or flight was going on. So that made the environment worse because we were at each other's throats. There was total division, and people couldn't get along. They couldn't see eye to eye, right?
Yeah, and that division has persisted. Just think of all the families that have been pitted against each other over the past few years, friendships that have ended, or at least been under extreme stress because one person was on one side of of the narrative and one was on the other. Or it's just been it's we really saw the worst of humanity, especially in New York City where you are, right? Well, the New York was the first city to start, and maybe one of the only in the country to require proof of vaccination, quote unquote, to go into restaurants, to go to shows, to go to concerts, to go to gyms, indoor, gyms, and most indoor locations. And they basically created this like segregated society in New York City. So I'd love for you to talk about that and talk about that experience. But before that, I just want to hear like how you said you had been following the health freedom movement for a while. What does health freedom mean to you? How do you define health freedom?
Well, it means everything to me. Medical freedom is the freedom to be able to choose what goes into your body. Because, if you can't choose that, then you're basically a slave. That means the government owns you, right? We own our bodies. We are free beings, free human beings, and nobody has the right to tell you what to eat, what not to eat, what to stick into your body, what drugs to take, what surgeries you're going to take, right? We have free will, and nobody should ever have the authority to rule over you. So I'm never going to allow any human being to have that power over me. And I think that's the attitude that every single human being on this planet should adapt. Is like if we had that attitude, things would be a lot different. But obviously, there's people who believe in this stuff, right? They believe that the government is here for their own well-being. But not to go off of a tangent, you were saying like what's medical freedom and how did I guess you were saying like how did I
Yeah,
get
no,
into
I
it and
think
all that?
I think you definitely defined it very well, and that's what it is. It's the freedom to choose what you put in your body, what you do with your body, and that's what it is. And that's what most of us were advocating for over the last few years. It wasn't about being anti anything. It was about other than anti tyranny. It was about being pro freedom to choose.
Yeah, I would
Um,
think it's a basic human right, right? Like it's
it
basic to me.
100%. I mean, it's a thing that they discussed in the Nuremberg trials was, human beings have to have informed consent and they have to have the right to refuse medical procedures. To force these things onto people or coerce people with threats of them losing their jobs, their livelihoods, their homes. Um, it's a violation really of the Nuremberg, rulings.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the nail because in there it does tell you you can't coerce anybody, you can't threaten anybody, and this is what they were doing. They coerced me, they coerced many. I've lost my job. I was working at a nursing home for about 13 years. Uh, worked through the pandemic. They were calling us heroes. And then they basically, told you you got to got kicked to the curb if you didn't take their injection, and that's coercion. That's saying if you don't get this, you're not going to make money anymore. We're going to, we're going to we're going to bankrupt you basically. It's terrible, man. It's terrible. And what you mentioned before, like how was it like during the pandemic? It was hellish. You couldn't even get into a supermarket. Like you get into a supermarket, they're like, put your mask on or you can't come in here. Or like try to go into a restaurant and they wouldn't serve you. You wouldn't be allowed to get in unless you had vaccine passport to show. um, it was terrible. Many times I would walk into like Whole Foods and be threatened with arrest, being forced out, or people would be following me. A lot of times I would play around with them because I would be like, you know what, I would just walk through, and just act like I'm deaf. I would just keep walking, and they're like, "Sir, sir, put on a mask, put on a mask," and I would just keep walking and start grabbing my stuff and then trying to check out my stuff. But of course, they would surround me and like force me to leave. It was terrible, man, terrible. But I would push my limits.
Yeah, all of you in New York City that were pushing back were an inspiration to the rest of us throughout the country and the world, I think. I saw what you were doing, and people like Joe Rose, and that little community of health freedom activists in New York City that organized protests against the Foo Fighters vaccinated only concert, the Springsteen on Broadway. I think the one girl's Julie, right, who actually got
Yes.
arrested at like an Applebee's
Mm-hmm.
or some restaurant for not showing papers, and she's disabled, she's wheelchair bound, and that
Yeah.
the police were called and they arrested her. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
man. Yeah, yeah. Wow, like you were really following from the beginning. That's great, man. I'm glad to see that and to hear that. And it really touches me to say like we're an inspiration. Like we tried, man. We're a small population, in New York, but we're passionate, and we're not afraid. We're not afraid to fight back, and we were hoping to inspire others, to do the same. But we have grown, exponentially. Like that's the great thing is like the first time I started speaking out about this, pandemic was like publicly was in Union Square, right? Like early 2020. I was telling people there is no pandemic. I was telling people not to be afraid and not to listen. And there was like about 5 to maybe 6 people, listening, watching, right? And then we would keep going back every week, every other week. And that's where I met Joe Rose. She was speaking one day and I'm like, wow, who is this girl? Like, so we met up and teamed up. And from there on, it took on a world of its own, a life of its own. The crowd kept growing, you know, until at one point we had about 26,000 people are estimating, like in city, outside of City Hall. Times Square was filled with thousands of people. I could not believe it. Like, because I was a shy person. I would never want to speak out like in public, you know what I mean? You would never think that of me, but yeah, I was not one you know, to like attention. But at one moment I felt it. I was on the stage, and when I'm looking at thousands of people, it hit me afterwards, like, oh my god, like, and it didn't hit me then, it hit me like after, when I saw the video footage. I was like, wow. Like, this is a movement.
It is, and it's a movement that got a little to no media coverage in the mainstream media, and if it did, it was portrayed as a group of fringe conspiracy theorists or radical right wing Trump supporter
Mm-hmm.
racist. And it's amazing to me because New York City's population is so ethnically diverse that when you would see any footage of those health freedom rallies, you would see people of all colors, men, women, all ages, and all sorts of ethnic backgrounds, and yet they're being portrayed by the MSM as being a bunch of right wing racists that don't science deniers, those fascist Trumpers. It's just yeah, but that was the importance of y'all taking to the streets and standing up, and it was an inspiration to everyone. I don't know if you saw the interview that Tim Robbins, the actor, gave to with Russell Brand, and this was like I think earlier this year. But he said Tim Robbins said the moment for him that he really woke up was he was in New York to film some movie or maybe to rehearse for some play or something, and he was on his way to his destination. He encountered one of the health freedom rallies, and
Mm.
just seeing the reality of what the people look like at that rally and how that didn't match up with the official narrative that these people were a bunch of right-wing radical extremists, that he was seeing people that, like yourself, had lost their job because they didn't feel comfortable taking this experimental injection that was rushed to the market, that was with like Pfizer, was created by a pharmaceutical company that has paid one of the highest criminal fines in the history of our country, over $2.1 billion in criminal fines for its misdoings. For
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big wake up call for him. So, just think of how many other people you either inspired and influenced there on boots on the ground, or then through videos and through social media. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I like your great observation by you. And you said Tim Robbins. Yeah, I have to look him
mm,
up. But yeah, we are definitely one of the most diverse, places on the planet, right? New York City. Uh, it wasn't about the right wing extremists, right? We were like, there was people that were socialists, leftists, right, libertarians. We had black, white, Chinese, Latinos, you know, Czech Republic, like you name it, Arabs, like we had everything under the sun. And they hated it so much that they would send people with Trump flags. And I know that these are controlled people. Like they would, I think what they did was they would send people that looked radical, holding up flags, wearing like MAGA hats. And like we knew that these people were not part of our movement, but they would bring them in just so when the media came in, they would take shots of these people and focus on that and say, oh, they're right wing extremists. And then, call over Antifa to start like throwing stuff at us. You know, this is complete bull. And it's crazy to show you how much control and how much fear they have of us. They feared our movement.
100%. And what you were just saying, that tactic of sending in plants with MAGA signs or some other inflammatory sign, they were doing that all across the country and in other countries, like in Canada, having a guy with a Confederate flag at the Freedom Convoy rally. It's like, first of all, Canadians, most of them probably don't even know what the Confederate flag is or means. It has no significance to a Canadian whatsoever. So why is some guy going to be at the Canadian Freedom Rally with a Confederate flag with a truck in the center of it? It's ridiculous. But you saw it in so many other places, like in the very first days of lockdown in California, where people were protesting, and you'd see somebody holding up a sign that said, I, "I want to get my hair cut," like just trivializing it, and to
Mm,
portray these people as like, "Oh, you're whining about your freedom," and it's like these were basic fundamental rights: the right to earn a living, the right to choose what you put into your body. These are fundamental, non-negotiable, unalienable rights. The right to assemble, the right to worship, and all those were under attack over the last few years.
hmm
So, but yeah, they were definitely, I think the powers that shouldn't be were afraid of people coming together, and people coming together across, racial backgrounds, across class backgrounds, and they're still afraid of it. And I think that's why they push things like wokeness, and to just continually divide people by identity, by immutable characteristics. Right? To me, that's what wokeness is. It is identity-based Marxism. Instead of it being the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and this class war, it takes that and it applies it to race, to gender. So it's pitting all of us against each other. So you never look up at the people that are really controlling the wealth, the media, the pharmaceutical industries, the governments. It just has people pitted and fighting amongst themselves.
Absolutely, man. Right on. Right on.
So let's talk about your music. What came first? Did you start making music, or did you get involved with activism first?
The activism was first, but music was always in my life. Just as a teenager, I used to, play around. Just I would write things. I would like, freestyle and have fun with my friends. But never took it serious. It was always like joking, but I knew how to rap. But I put that like I didn't do that for years. Like I just did that maybe from junior high school to high school, and I stopped. And it was in the back of my head. I never followed rap music after that. I was not really into the newer rap music. I was like my best years were like my favorite years were like the 90s, pretty much 90s rap. But after 2000, I didn't listen to anything like that. I have a wide range of music that I like. I listen to everything, man. Jazz, rock, all sorts of stuff, so I'm a music lover. But when the pandemic hit, just was getting angry. Was getting angry, and I was like, you know what? I just started making things. I started creating things, and I wrote down some stuff. And the first thing I wrote down was like "City of Tyranny," and I did it as an acapella first. You know, just kind of got up during a speech and said, you know what, I'm not going to speak today. I'm just going to do like spoken word. You know, and then after that, DVS, which is another rapper, DVS 7.0. You know, he had heard that and he reaches out to me because he needed somebody to fill in a song. And I guess the person he was getting wasn't getting back to him in time, and he wanted to. He had like studio time like prepared, and he's like, "Listen, the rapper hasn't gotten back to me." He's like, "How fast can you make a song?" So he like trusted me. He's like, so I thank him for giving me that opportunity. The song was called "Let Me Be a Child," and that was my first release. And he's like, "Can you make a song in 2 days?" And I was like, I had all the pressure, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I don't know, man. I've never done that before, but uh, what's the topic? And like, give me the beat, and I'll let you know. As soon as he gave me the beat and he showed me what he done his verse, and he left the open verse for me. As soon as I heard it, like the first two sentences just came out, like it just came to me. Like, I didn't even have to think about it, you know.
And that
And
was in 2020.
I think it was 2021, possibly 2021. Um,
So you releasing music is a fairly recent development.
yes, yeah,
It's
yeah,
very new.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like professionally recording, yeah, definitely. This is brand new, like 2 years old, you know. And I'm constantly now. I'm just writing songs, and like I try to work on stuff all the time. And you know, whenever I get inspired, or sometimes I want to sit down, and I'm gonna be releasing a lot more music for sure. Because now it's like I found that to be more powerful than actually speaking. Because you know, you make a speech and it leaves, right? Like you record it, people hear it, but when you have a song, it it puts you in a trance. And that's what I like. The way they brainwash us with their garbage music, you know, to get us to like do horrible things and to be horrible human beings and to become basically sociopaths. That's what they're training you to be. I'm using their brainwashing, you know, in a positive way. Just kind of, you know, put people in a trance and get them to think about what I'm saying and what is happening, you know?
Absolutely, and that's what I love about your song "I'm Unvaccinated" because it's got such a defiant mantra as of a chorus. You know, my only wish is that it had come out earlier because I think in 2020, you know, that would have
Yeah.
been like we all needed that song. But I know the
Well,
creative juices.
I did write it earlier, a lot earlier
Okay,
than I released it, right? So, but I just never, I didn't have, I had the hook. The hook was there from the beginning because I came up with it like I was taking a shower once and I was just like, it just came to me. I was like, wow, like I like that hook. But then I just left it. I just never thought about recording it. It was just kind of something I would chant to myself. And yeah, I should have definitely did it like a year earlier, you know, but it is what it is.
and it just I ain't showing you my papers just sums it all up. You know, and that's it. It shows how ridiculous and how intensely dark things got where people were having to show their medical records to take part in society. And all these people that worked at movie theaters and worked at bars and worked at coffee shops and that all of a sudden became deputized, became lieutenants and COVID mandate army, you know? And some of those people really, I think, enjoyed that power trip, that little taste of being able to flex on somebody else.
Oh, they were
Um,
so disgusting. So disgusting. I remember this woman, like, I was on a train and this woman was fully masked. And you know, it was just to let you know the experience, like on a train in New York City, and like getting on it was very uncomfortable. Like, if you didn't wear a mask, like everybody looked at you with like the stare of death.
which is
Okay.
wild
Because,
because usually in New York, when you're on the subway, nobody even looks at you. That's something that's I always found like very unsettling when I would go up there and visit. Is like people are so used to being like crammed on subway trains
yeah,
together and being like shoulder to shoulder on the sidewalk that like nobody makes eye contact with you. It always felt like, well, man, this is a weird place. So the fact that they would even look at you now, they're looking at you
correct.
because you
It
don't have
turned
a
like,
mask.
yeah, New York turned so weak. You know, the average New Yorker is a weakling. Like, they're weak and pathetic. What would happen was they would get so angry that they would, like, many times people would come up to me, want to fight, like they wanted to fight me over this. And I knew I would tell them, go ahead, swing at me, go ahead. You want to put the mask on me? I knew they were weak, so I knew they couldn't fight me. Like, I'm not saying that I'm strong or like I'm a tough guy, but like I knew that if you were so scared that you had to wear a mask, there's no way you can kick my ass. And that's how I would carry myself. You're not kicking my ass. You're puny. You're a weakling. So that attitude would make them back off. But like, this one woman I remember, this older woman was like trying to offer me a mask. And I was like, no, thank you. I was being nice about it. She's like, no, 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 put it on. And she would signal to me. I'm like, no, no, thank you. And then she got nuts and she was like, you're endangering the whole train and you're so selfish. And I'm like looking at her like, I'm like, wow, like, how do you respond to that? You
It's
know?
diabolical. They convinced people that breathing air was dangerous and that another human being's breath was going to wipe out an entire, train car, the entire subway. It's so inhuman. So there's so many of the things that we endured over the past few years was so inhuman to shut down funerals. Like a good friend of mine passed away in 2020 and they couldn't even hold a funeral for her.
Wow.
This woman who had touched so many lives and she was such a patron of the music and arts community in Georgia and had touched the lives of so many people. Couldn't even have a funeral for her. Yeah, they had to have a Zoom service.
Terrible. It's
Uh,
terrible.
it really is. All the people that died, drawing their last breath, and they couldn't see their loved ones, so they had to look at an iPad to say goodbye to their loved ones. I mean,
Disgusting.
it's disgusting and criminal. And there needs to be accountability for what these people did. And I know people just want to move on, but I don't think we can properly heal. Like I think we need to forgive. We need to find forgiveness for ourselves, and those people need to forgive themselves for their actions, but there also needs to be accountability for us to truly move on and heal, I think.
Yeah, I personally don't want to forgive anybody who was pushing this narrative and like you said, needs to be held accountable. It seems like they're going to get away with it, right? Because that's what they do. Like when there's crimes, like when they murdered, John F. Kennedy, they got away with it, right? They put some fake person to like take the blame, like a patsy or whatever, and then they just, what is it, 60 years later, 70 years later, um, you know, they're scot free, right? The real killers. And the same thing like Fauci. Like right now, even if they blame Fauci, he'll just be the blame guy, right? Which I don't think he's going to get. Like he's close to death. He's like, what is he, 80 years old? What has he got? 10 more years? Even if they put him life in jail, it's got 10 years. That's not going to suffer much. But like these people
He
need
might
to
have
be held
20.
accountable.
He might have
You-
20. I mean, Kissinger lived to 100, so
well, it
well,
all depends if he got vaccinated, right? If he really took his juice.
I could guarantee you that didn't happen. I'm sure
Absolutely
that was
not.
like a saline shot.
Of course, he's not
But
that
yeah,
dumb.
he could do, 2 decades behind bars. That might be some kind of comeuppance.
Yeah, no, I'm for more extreme punishments, but bring back the electric chair. That's what I believe these people deserve. And I mean, maybe not. Maybe jail is actually better because you, at least, electric chair, you die suddenly, right? No, I want you to suffer for 20 years. That's probably a better punishment, actually.
Well,
You
these
know?
people, all the COVID tyrants, whether Fauci or the politicians that enacted these heinous and draconian measures across the world, most of them can't go out in public anymore. I mean, Fauci has like one of the most,
You're right.
you know what I mean? Fauci has one of the like the highest budgets for a former government employee for like Secret Service detail. And he's
Amazing.
probably one of the only former government employees that has a full Secret Service detail because he can't go anywhere in public. And the
Yeah,
same thing,
he was supposed to go to Hofstra University to get this. He was going to be awarded some kind of a prestigious award from Hofstra University, and we were planning to have um a protest. He canceled. He already canceled because he knows, like, he can't, like you said, he can't be in public. People hate him. People want to spit on the ground that he walked on.
mhm. And yeah, the same thing with these politicians in Australia and other places. They're never going to be able to have a normal life again. Like Dan Andrews in Australia, Trudeau, uh, Cuomo, Newsom, you just name it. These people, they're never going to be able to have any semblance of a normal life. Um,
Well, I
and
guess depends where, right? Like in New
right.
York, a lot of people still love Cuomo. It's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. But the small minority, like like myself, like obviously if they saw him, they would have a word with him, like so he'd probably be uncomfortable in that moment. But overall, New Yorkers are stupid. I mean, look what they did to them.
And so Cuomo was bad enough. He left office disgraced amidst allegations of sexual assault. And then he was replaced by Kathy Hochul, right? She takes office after Cuomo, and she's already announced plans to implement pre-crime surveillance programs that will, basically monitor people's social media, monitor the conversations, and to see if they would potentially commit a crime somewhere down the line, like thought crime, minority report type stuff. Is that
Hmm.
correct? You're familiar with that?
Yeah, from what I understand, she said, I'm calling upon social media to monitor the language. So what are they checking our messages and our messages and comments and all of that? Of course, they're seeing who you're speaking to, what kind of lives you're doing. They're probably monitoring all that, recording it all, putting it in a database, and they want to see who are the rebels, who are the problems. Okay,
Yeah.
and as this is going, this is all coming together, right? Because they're having that. They are working on an adult vaccine database bill in New York, which we were fighting last year. They were able to pass it. I believe it was in the Assembly, um, and this year we're going to have to fight it in the Senate. So it's still continuing. We have to stop it. So there's an adult vaccine database means that by law, your doctor or your medical health provider has to take your vaccine records and put them in a state database where they can track you. Okay, that's one. Then the second one is the quarantine camp regulation, which we originally won in court, right? Bobby Ann Cox, amazing lawyer, she defeated it. And the judge said, yeah, you can't do this. You can't just lock people up without having proof of them being contagious, right? So that regulation that she passed was not a law. It was a regulation that she, as a dictator, put out there. And she's saying that we don't need to test you. It's only if we suspect that you're contagious, we can lock you up. And it didn't tell you where that you can be locked up. It could be your home. It could be a healthcare facility. It could be in a cage somewhere in somebody's basement. No language was there, like to be clear about what they would do to you. And there's no way of getting out unless they say that you can get out, right? You didn't have access to a lawyer or anything like that. So draconian. So of course the judge struck it down. Of course she appeals because she's a tyrant. And somehow, some way, this judge said, yeah, you have no basis to bring this case against Kathy Hochul. Like basically, you don't have the right to bring this case to her, so we're scrapping it. So they didn't fight it and argue it on the merits of what the lawyer was bringing, right? To say like you can't do this; it's a separation of powers. No, they're not. They're just saying you don't have the right to bring this lawsuit against the governor.
Which
So
it makes zero sense because she's trying to circumvent the Constitution, and she has no right to do that. So
correct.
it's like the upside down.
So what I'm trying to paint here is like what you're saying from the surveillance, the adult vaccine database, now this quarantine thing, which right now it's not in effect yet, but she has the right to recreate it. So at any moment now, because she's open to do it again, she can just write out a new one and post it and say it's in effect right now. So we're still fighting that. We have to educate people and we need to spread the word on that. So all these things that are happening, is all leading to this controlled, like it's going to be worse than what we saw, right? They're setting up the infrastructure to rein in on us 100%, and then they're going to come in with the digital currency and all of that. You won't be able to breathe, you won't be able to eat, you won't be able to get a job, you won't be able to get an education. uh, you know they they want full control, and this is the testing ground, right? This Israel was one of the testing grounds, because when they did it, when the pandemic came, they vaccinated their whole population, right, to participate in society. And New York is another uh test, and also Australia was a test, right? Like there's
Mhm.
certain places that they really went hard, right?
Yeah, and so that's Assembly Bill 416, I think. A 416 is what you're
Hmm.
talking about. That gives the governor the unprecedented power to quarantine someone, to take them out of their home and detain them indefinitely.
Well, that was the
Uh,
original bill, right? That
okay.
bill never was able to pass. That bill was never able to move in the legislature because nobody wanted to touch it. So because nobody wanted to touch it and it kept dying for 5 years straight, because we were fighting it. I was on top of that bill for 5 years. Like me, like organizations that I'm part of, like that I help Children's Health Defense, Autism Action Network. I work with a lot of different groups, Teachers for Choice. Uh, we were fighting these bills 5 years straight and it kept dying. And then she said, you know what? I don't need a bill. I don't need a law. I'm going to create a regulation because I'm a dictator. That's what she did. She just passed it and it was there. It was there activated until Bobby Ann Cox had to bring a lawsuit, which took a lot of time, a lot of effort. And that woman's fighting hard, man. And, you know, um, now she has to do it all over again, you know?
I think that's what we saw. Speaking to that, what we saw over the last 3 years is this blind spot in American law and constitutional law when it comes to emergency powers, right?
Hmm.
If they can
Hmm.
declare something an emergency, like the quote unquote pandemic, then it gives these governors and these county officials this unprecedented power to
Yep.
do whatever they want, like things like this, where they can say you are a contagious person. We need to quarantine you and separate you from your
Yeah.
family. And yeah, that's really frightening. And I think nobody really saw that coming before. But now we know that's how they use those emergency powers to just expand the reach and do things that they normally legally couldn't achieve.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's what something, and the way we defeat this, I think, is just keep talking to people, keep educating your friends, family, coworkers, anybody you see. Just remind them, your child. Talk to your child if you have kids, and tell them this is the importance of the Constitution. This was created uh, to guarantee you these rights, even if there's an emergency. Okay, the emergency does not, void the Constitution. The Constitution is there. You have the right to speak. I don't care what is happening. There could be hell on earth, people shooting at you, people dying in the streets, right? Vomiting to death. You have the right to speak. Okay. You have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to private property. Nobody can take that away from you. And what they did is they took all of that from us. They told businesses, you can only have 25% of your population. It's like, what? How is a restaurant going to survive with 25% when the rents are sky high in New York City? Okay. They shut down churches while liquor stores were open up. Okay, liquor stores are open up, but strip clubs and and beer joints, are open. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
Mhm. So yeah, we're entering 2024 here in a few weeks, and an
Hmm.
election year. I don't put much stock in an elected official saving us or
Hmm.
course correcting from any of this, because I feel like, especially on the presidential level, once they get to that level, they're so captured, they're so compromised,
Hmm.
or they wouldn't even be an option. The same government that has assassinated democratically elected presidents in other countries, that has trained the CIA has trained death squads and helped to instigate military coups and takeovers, overthrowing democratically elected regimes. That same government isn't going to let its own people change things with a ballot, in my opinion. But what do you foresee happening in this year ahead? Do you think it's going to be an election of Biden versus Trump, and it's going to be like a repeat of the last one? What do you foresee happening?
It's interesting because I really don't know what's going to happen with that because there's Trump, there's Biden, and there's RFK Jr. Right? So um, RFK Jr. is polling really well with people that are under 35 years old. And that's pretty interesting. Like he's beating all the candidates when you look at that, right? And it's because he actually talked about it, and he said he believes it's because of the podcast. Like younger people listen to podcasts, and when you get to listen to him, you actually see his whole position, and it's not what the media is saying about him, right? Um, so that's going to be interesting. And I don't know, he could either win, right? Or he could be taking votes away from people like Trump, right? And then it would maybe give Biden the victory, or vice versa, right? Maybe some Democrats are going to, you know, um, go more towards RFK. I don't know. I don't think RFK is perfect, right? I don't agree with some things that he says, but if I was to have to choose a politician between the three, I'd go for Kennedy. I think he means well. I think he comes from a good place, and I've been following him for years, right, with the medical freedom movement. But again, he's not perfect. I don't like his stance on certain things, but I'll take him over the others any day as of right now. But again, like you said, we can't put trust in that, and that's what I want to highlight. That we cannot trust a president, a governor, a mayor, and I'm not about that. I'm not about, oh, he's the savior, and I'm going to sit back and lounge. No, you put somebody who's better situated, right? Who you know is not going to act like a tyrant towards you. Like, all right, we'll settle with that for now. But in the meantime, I'm going to educate my community. I'm going to keep speaking out. I'm going to keep creating art. I'm going to, make sure that I let my representatives know my stance on things. And constantly, this is what we lost in America: is we got too comfortable. Keep making connections with these representatives. They're your representatives. They're supposed to be there for you. You got to let them know. You need to talk to your community, bring them together, and constantly have these meetings so they know that you're not going away. They know that they can F with you. Okay. The minute you sit back, and they want you sitting back on that couch on Instagram all day, they want you, playing with your, what, watching, what on the video on your phone.
Yeah, they want you getting fat and drunk and stupid and watching Pornhub all day
Exactly.
and
And
yeah,
drugged up, keep
drug.
taking the drugs,
Mhm.
okay? And stay stupid, and we'll take care of everything. Just vote. Just make sure you vote, even though we can rig this thing. Like, this is insanity, man.
Yeah,
So,
for me, it's the illusion of choice. That's what continues to prop this all up. Where the people can't get too angry because it's like, well, at the end of the day, you can go cast your ballot and your voice has been heard. But
uh-huh.
it's not if they don't count the votes. And I'm not just talking about the last election because,
Hmm.
you know, I think Trump was complicit in what happened in 2020. Trump was the sitting president when they locked down the country. I know
Hmm.
his fans and supporters will say, "Oh, it wasn't him; it was the governors." But Trump oversaw it.
It was
Trump
totally him.
he didn't send in the feds to places like New York and California that were banning religious worship and shuttering churches. He didn't send the
Yeah.
federal forces in and say, "Hey, no, you can't do this. We have the right to assemble. We have the
Yeah.
right to
He was
worship."
cheerleading. He was cheerleading the vaccines, cheerleading them.
No, yeah,
And
he
I'm
brags about it to this day.
so it's disgusting, and I don't know how people are just like, on his, what, all the time. Like, people have to grow up and realize that, what, these people are not here for you. It's we the people, and that's what, again, we have more power than them. And if we want that to become a reality again, we have to stay involved and keep teaching people, because maybe it's 10 people. We don't have as much power, but once that reproduces and we have 100,000 people on our side, 200,000, 1 million, we're going to get there one day. There's people are going to be fed up eventually. When they It's going to take a lot, though. Once they see society crumble, once they see that the digital system is in place and they can't purchase things because they're not behaving well, or they didn't say the right polite word, or they didn't call somebody by the proper pronoun. Okay, it's going to be too late. But I think that's going to cause a revolution, because you say, wait, I can't eat now because I said something bad about Trump, or I said something bad about Biden, or I criticized whatever, Kathy Hochul. um People are going to snap.
So, and you said you had a background in the healthcare. You were working
Hmm.
at a nursing home, and you
Hmm.
lost your job over the injection.
Correct. I got a religious exemption. They granted it to me, okay, which is really ridiculous, because they couldn't. I mean, I have legitimate religious beliefs against vaccines, so you can't question that. Like, my argument is solid. My belief is solid, and they couldn't deny it, so they approved it. But then they said, "Oh, but we can't accommodate you." So they broke the law. They broke the law. And to this day, I have not gotten my job back. um and we will see them in court.
Understood. Understood. Well, I'd love to. I've talked a lot about your song "I'm Unvaccinated," so I would love to play that for the audience. So let's give that a whirl, and then after playing the video, I'd love to hear hear about the inspiration behind writing it and shooting the music video. So this is I'm Unvaccinated by Kozi-19.
Rip your mask off your face and embrace revolution. When tyranny's a problem, then rebellion's the solution. Public servants ain't serving me, then who the fuck they serving? I already know the answer, I've been over here observing. Follow the money and you'll catch them fucking rats. They lab engineered a common cold from the bats, making humans more susceptible, behavior's unacceptable. Isn't this supposed to be the land of the free? Then why you trying to force them injections into me? Where my freedom fighters at? Raise the truth off this mother, middle fingers in the air, cause we fucking big brother, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't putting on no mask. So don't you try to tell me, don't you even fucking ask. We know about the reset, we know what's in the shots. They're planning on merging humans with robots. We're gonna intercept their plots or their evil insanity. We're the last stand for the future of humanity. Ain't nowhere to run, ain't nowhere to hide. Stand against these tyrants, help us turn around the tide. Where my freedom fighters at? Raise the truth off this mother, middle fingers in the air, cause we fucking big brother, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't putting on no mask. So don't you try to tell me, don't you even fucking ask.
They deactivated, they done took over their mind. They done cut off all the switches, they done shut off all the lights. Go get vaccinated. They went running, got in line, but it ain't even they fault, cause they running around blind, they indoctrinated. From the moment we turn 5, they been programming our brain, they been filling it with lies, get reactivated. Take control over your mind. If you listen, I can show you how to read between the lines. And for those who tell the lie, won't be no mercy.
I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't putting on no mask. So don't you try to tell me, don't you even fucking ask.
Fuck a crooked politician on the money making mission, man. If they ain't for the people, run them out of their position. They can mandate what they want, just another pot to piss in. I'm a free man, homie, never needed no permission. Freedom ain't for free, gotta pay for your admission. Put some soldiers in position, gonna arrest some sons of bitches. We got proof beyond suspicion about the crimes they committed, and we supposed to trust them. Fuck that, where my freedom fighters at? Yeah, the truth in this motherfucker bird is in the air, cause we fucking big brother, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you no papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you no papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you no papers, I ain't showing you no papers, I ain't putting on no mask. And don't you try and tempt me, bitch, I put one in your ass.
I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I'm unvaccinated. I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't showing you my papers, I ain't putting on no mask. So don't you try to tell me, don't you even fucking ask.
Epic.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man, it's what a rebellious, defiant anthem for our time and for the COVID era.
Yeah, it was just pure anger unleashing, and this the frustration. And I could tell you, it was like I felt like I had to bring back like the New York sound, back into this disgusting weakness that we were seeing. And that's what that was. It was like this, I got it from my spirit. I just connected back to like when I was younger, right? In the 90s. It was a very angry time in New York where people were angry. It was a harder environment, right? Growing up. And, it just brought that back. It brought it back into the forefront. And it was kind of like, F you, like, you're not taking advantage of me. Like, fuck this, man. Who the fuck do you think you are, basically? And that was what I was feeling. And I wanted that, like, my vision was like, as I was saying this, I was like hoping that energy, that vibration was going to be carried out amongst all New Yorkers and just everybody do that. Just feel that vibration and do it, push back. And that's what I was hoping for,
And who was the other rapper on that track?
Yeah, that's Ito the Truth. He's an amazing rapper. You guys really gotta look into him. Uh, like he has amazing classic hits. I'll send them to you. I'll send you some of the
Yeah,
songs. You're gonna
please.
love it. He's a great artist, man. You got to see his other stuff for sure.
Okay. It's talking about 90s rap and that being a big musical influence on you. Who were some of the rappers or artists that inspired you
Oh, there's
when you were
several, but
coming up?
well, I could see like Wu-Tang Clan, Nas. Well, just his first album, Nas. Pharaoh Monch is a big inspiration. He was part of Organized Confusion at the time. Not many people probably know him, but I liked his style, like very lyrical, and he had like the spiritual element to it, and he's very big inspiration. I liked the Roots back then, in their early days.
I was just
Uh,
listening to that Jay-Z Unplugged album. It's just an incredible record and performance because he had the Roots as his backing band. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but or seen that
I'm not sure.
performance.
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, so it's like Jay-Z did MTV Unplugged and he did everything live. So like no DJ,
Hmm.
like he had
Oh wow.
and the Roots were the band backing him up.
Oh wow.
And
I didn't know that. I'll check it
it's
out.
incredible,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a Jay-Z fan, but yeah, I would like to see that just to see the the instrumental stuff. But yeah, there's a lot. Common Sense. When he was back called Common Sense back then. His first two albums, I was a huge fan, and that really inspired me for sure. And then later on, Immortal Technique was a big, especially with the political stuff, and you know, definitely got inspired by that for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger hearing about Immortal Technique and KRS-One as being like the real conscious rappers. Did
Hmm.
either of them speak out over the last few years?
Uh, I'm not gonna make a comment on that,
Yeah.
but you know, um, yeah, I'd rather not comment on that right now.
Okay. All right. I don't want to start any beef between you and Immortal Technique, man. This
Yeah, I respect his lyrical skills and what he
mhm.
brought to the table. I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that. I'm
Well,
not
it's
sure
just
what he yeah. I'm not
yeah, I
sure
was
what he
gonna
did during the pandemic. I'm not sure, so I'll leave it at that.
copy. Yeah, it's sad though. There was very few artists, rappers, musicians, bands that spoke out over the last few years. There was a lot of people that embraced the the modern day segregation, like Foo Fighters and Bruce Springsteen playing vaccinated only shows on
Hmm.
Broadway and Madison Square Garden for the Foo Fighters. Um, seeing Questlove from the Roots doing
Disgusting.
Pfizer
Yeah.
commercials, like literally doing
Yeah.
Pfizer commercials. Like, how much more could you
That's the
sell
thought I
out?
just had. I just remembered that when you said Questlove. So Questlove, F you. I lost respect for you for sure for doing that.
Yeah, man, it's so
Sucker.
sad. It's like how much money do you need too? It's like
Yeah.
you've already the guys, had the career with the Roots. He went on to be they went on to be the house band for Jimmy Fallon. So he's got a nice paycheck. Do you need more money? Do you really have
Well,
to
I think
whore
they're
yourself
scared.
out
Yeah, they
for
do.
Pfizer?
They do because they're scared, right? They're scared. They know that if they speak, they're gonna lose future connections, right? So, but they have millions, right? I know that if you give me $2 million, I know that I can make that work for me very well. You know what I mean? Like I know I don't need anybody else. I could just maybe buy a property and just live off of that. I don't know, like collect rent or whatever. You could figure it out. But yeah, they're I don't know what to say, man, but it's disappointing to say the least. Like artists, you're supposed to be the ones inspiring change, inspiring freedom. Okay, that's what artists were supposed to do in the 60s, in the 70s. Uh, you know, these were big revolutionary there was a big revolutionary change in this country, right? Especially after the JFK assassination, is Vietnam War. This inspired a lot of great music. And right now, the music is garbage. We have women half naked, shaking their ass. Little kids are listening to them. What are they teaching girls to be? Prostitutes and to degrade themselves. Uh, Men are taught to be weaklings. Okay. This is disgusting. We want to uplift people, not break them down and make them feel worthless, because that's what this music is doing.
So much of the climate we live in now with cancel culture has made people afraid. Like you're talking about, people like Questlove doing the Pfizer commercial, or a lot of people being afraid to speak out against the official narrative because they don't want to lose business connections. They don't want to lose business opportunities. They don't want to lose fans. They don't want to ruffle feathers,
Hmm.
especially the feathers of powerful people and influential people. And cancel culture is an extension of that through everybody's life, right? Where if you there's pressure to put the black square on your Instagram when they tell you to. There's the pressure to support whatever the current thing is, and if you don't, or if you speak out of line, you can be canceled. And that's a horrible place for artists to create. You can't create out of a place of fear and worrying about what's going to offend somebody.
It's
That
terrible, man.
it's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's
It stifles the entire creative process.
like I look at comedians. Comedians are scared to joke. Like you're supposed to joke about whatever the hell you want. There's no limit to what you can joke about. Okay. And now comedians cannot touch certain topics. That's when you know you're in trouble. That's when you know there's a communist, uh, dictatorship leading the way in charge. That you can't speak. You can't maybe draw something. You can't write about something. Come
And
on,
in some
people.
cases, it's things that of just a few years ago were common knowledge. That like there's a biological difference between a man and a woman. Even these things are now up for grabs and are controversial
Controversial.
subjects. Yeah.
Controversial to say you're a woman, right? Like this is an actual woman. You are
It's
not a woman. You're imagining you're a woman, but you're not a woman. You can't say that.
it's wild. Or just to acknowledge biological differences between men and women, you
Yeah.
know?
5 years ago, right? 6 years ago, that was seen as a mental illness
Yeah. It's
when you think
what
that you're a woman and you're not.
insane times we find ourselves. So, any closing words, Cozy? Where can people find you? What's the best way to support you and your art and your activism?
Yeah, thank you. The best way to support me is go to my Instagram, Kozis Wellness, Kozis Wellness. That's where my biggest, I guess, following is, where I do most of my work. So go there, and the way you can support me is just follow me and get the updates. Buy my music, even though we don't make, as an artist, we don't make much from the sales. So you can download my songs, stream my songs on Spotify for free. I have a link in my bio on my Instagram where you can just go stream my songs. Please go do that. Go listen to my songs. I have about 5 of them out right now. And just share it. Share my music, and come say hello on my page.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me, and
Absolutely.
keep fighting the good fight. To anybody watching, if you enjoy this episode, please like and share it with your friends. Please subscribe on Rumble and YouTube. I have a feeling this discussion will probably be a Rumble exclusive because of some of the territory we delved into. And lastly, with Unvaccinated, I'm surprised that's still up. That music video is still up on YouTube. Have you encountered any censorship with that?
I haven't, which is surprising for sure.
Very
They,
surprising. It's
yeah, they
wild how they
flagged
pick
other
and choose.
videos. Yeah, they flagged other videos, with lesser things that I've said, which is very shocking. But hey, we'll see what happens. But last
Yeah.
thing I want to say, guys, is never stop talking. Don't ever suppress your thoughts and language, and don't correct your language. Just say it. Say what you need to say, because your children are depending on it. The future of this country and the future for freedom on this planet is depending on it. So stop being scared and say what you need to say if you know that what you're saying is truth. If you know what you're saying is truth, say it. It's your duty to say it.
Amen. Speak out and be courageous because courage is contagious.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you. Kozi-19. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thank
Stay
you.
stay fearless, and until next time, live free.
I got some hope that the stuff I've been preaching out for years is finally ready to spark the gears of intended ears. We're done with evil rulers pushing their fears, forcing us into compliance with their lies and fake tears.